Hello and welcome to another edition of Knickerbocker Banter. I'm your host, as always, Harris Wishar. With me today is a very special guest, a 7-year NBA career, two with our beloved New York Knicks, and still has ties with the organization to this day, a first-round choice of the 1996 NBA draft, and a brilliant career at Syracuse. John Wallace, thank you for joining the show today, man.
Harris, what's up, man? Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course, man. You know, I tell stories about this a lot when I had met you back in 2011 and some of those stories and your personality and the way you interacted with the kids. So when I started this show in October last year, I know we had the mutual friend and Skip reaching out to him and said, got to have John on the show because I know our fans will appreciate that as well.
No doubt, man. And Skip's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the whole Gehring family been tremendous to me. And I'm really looking forward to this talk today.
Yeah.
I remember back then in 2011, you were, already a diehard Knick fan.
Yep.
And, that doesn't change. And, right now, back then, it wasn't as popular to be a Knick fan. And now everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak, because we have a really good team and a really bright future.
Yep.
But I'm really excited for the upcoming season.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head, right? In 2010, 2011, right? Post D'Antoni, right? We're trying to figure out our footing there, or he was still coaching there, then Woodson, but we're kind of getting out of the mud a little bit, and then we struggled a little bit after that. But I was born into this from my father, and there was nothing that was ever going to change that, no matter how much the Knicks struggled. And you said it's a good time right now.
Absolutely, man. And with our young core of Brunson, OG, Randall, and they just brought in Mikal Bridges. Josh Hart. All those guys are just in their prime or entering their prime. You just can ask for a better situation in terms of the age of the guys, the growth of their game, and how good they are, and knowing your game now. Like at this point in your career, you know what your game is. I mean, you can play to your strengths as much as possible and makes your team a lot better.
No question. And I caught the tail end of the 90s run, but we'll get into obviously your career and becoming a Knick around that time and what was going on in the organization. But for someone that's followed the team since, 98, 99 is when I kind of started getting into it. This is such a breath of fresh air, right? Because you hear the stories about what it was like and you just wanted that so bad, right? You wanted consistency. You wanted, obviously, Thibs having a lot to do with that. Leon Rose running the organization. But I just so badly wanted stability, wanted consistent playoff appearances, right? You were on the team in 2000, the last time they had made the second round 2 times in a row, right? Now we have that. So it really is. And I've said this to everybody that I've spoken to, like, even though we haven't won anything yet, it does feel like basketball heaven being outside the Garden in big playoff games.
Yeah, and I think the most important part of that is Leon Rose, who was criticized early on because he didn't speak enough. He wasn't visible.
Right.
He was just in the back like a mastermind, just working out, his chemistry set as to what right formulas go together. And right now, everyone's like, he looks like a genius because he really put together a really, really good team that can contend for a title. And I'm really excited about that. In terms of Thibs was my rookie coach.
Yep.
When I got drafted, Thibs was my coach. So that's why I worked out with every day. Aside from him working out everyone else, he was the workout guy.
Right.
I said to him last year when I was doing radio, I don't know how he has any elbows left. He threw so many chest passes, rebounding for guys over the years. I'm shocked he could still hold a pen and paper and stuff, man.
He was physical with you, Thibs? He was physical with you?
Oh, very. You got to remember back then, that's what Thibs, he was stronger than most of the guys because he's benching like 400,
wow,
450. Thibs was a strong guy back then, really strong. So, yeah, he gave you a good workout, a great workout.
Yeah, and when we had Chris Childs on, he would talk about the intensity of those practices. And I even remember you touching on this because you were talking to the kids at the camp that we were at. And you're like, listen, you had a great career at Cuse, right? Coming off the national title game, right? And you come into those practices. Was that eye-opening for you, the intensity there?
Well, absolutely. The intensity, the attention to detail, the extra level of conditioning and everything else that, entails being an NBA player, that what all that encompasses. It's tough, especially as a rookie. When you come in, you try to lean on the right guys, and as you learn your way through it, you learn how to get yourself in the optimum shape so that you're prepared. You got to remember, back then, training camp was like 3.5 hours or 4 hours a day, twice a day. So you're doing like 10 hours of practice because the rookies had to go an hour early. So I mean, it's hard work.
Oh, yes.
Everyone just sees the glamour and the glitz and the end product, and want to live that lifestyle, but they're not willing to put in that amount of work, because it's really, really a arduous process to not only become, but to stay an NBA player.
No question, man. And listen, you were probably one of those guys, and because Thibs has coached a lot of players in the league, right? And a lot of people talk highly of him for the most part, but then you see that poll come out, right? Where I don't know if you've seen this or not, where some guys didn't want to play for him, and then Josh Hart came to defend Thibs, and then everyone talks about the minutes, but I'm sure you had a ton of confidence that he would get this thing right when he got the job.
Yeah, and you know who's not talking about it? The guys that's playing for Thibs. That's just a perception,
Right.
Because you're going to work hard. The guys who don't want that just means they're not hard workers anyway. So you don't want them with the Knicks, if that's their mindset anyway. Exactly. To win a championship, it's really hard. It's the hardest thing to do. So it takes hard work. It takes attention to that detail every single day, and no days off to win a title. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
So the guys who are worried about the amount of work you're going to have to, be in with Thibs or something, those guys aren't, they never played for Thibs, or they never played for a championship level team, because it's hard to win a title. Really hard.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? It's like I said, I used the word breath of fresh air before, but I've always said this. Everybody wanted to complain about the load management error, right? Like everyone, the guys are sitting. Now guys are playing too much. You want to have your cake and eat it too. Like you got to, right, make a decision. Do you want the hard-nosed guy? Because you're complaining either way. So I know these guys don't mind being out there and playing those minutes.
No guy in the NBA or WNBA, no woman for that matter, is like, yeah, take me out the game. Like even when you're exhausted, you just want to play. That's what you do. You want to play the game. So when those couple of games when Josh Hart was playing 48 minutes, I'm sure he was tired, but I'm sure he loved it. He was ecstatic about playing that amount of minutes, having that kind of effect on the game, and being able to help the team win when you're giving your all like that for 48 minutes. I mean, I'm sure that night he went right to bed and had an ice bath and all that, but that's supreme conditioning to be able to do that in the playoffs, no less.
Well, and he just looks like he loves it, right? And he plays like he loves it. And you played with some of those guys. But one thing I wanted to ask you is your love of the game. And when you knew as a young person that this is what you wanted to turn into your life?
Probably when I got to college. It wasn't like some high school thing. Obviously I loved the game in high school and all that, but started to get glimpses in college that I could possibly play at the next level. So it makes you take your work level to the next stratosphere. Like you start hearing whispers and whatever that you could possibly be in the league. You want to make that come to fruition.
Yeah.
And have that in as much as possible in your own control. And the only thing you can't control is the amount of work you put in. So that's what I tried to do.
Was that around, I know you had some monster seasons there, but was that right when you got on campus? How long did that take for I'm going to be in the NBA now?
Well, into my sophomore year. Into my sophomore year, I saw myself in a mock draft in the back of a magazine. I was shocked because, back then that was 94.
Right.
There were wasn't no polls or internet. So, anything like that, you had to read magazines to get the mock draft.
Yeah. Everybody has it at their fingertips today. You had to actually read stuff back then, right? But yeah, and speaking of drafts, because I can't talk to you without asking you about the '96 draft and what I consider one of the coldest photos in NBA history. Right? What does it mean to be a part of such the iconic class? Which it's really hard to argue that that's not the best draft of all time.
Well, I've already argued it down numerous times. It's definitely the best draft of all time.
It's deep.
From titles to Hall of Famers to MVPs to whatever criteria you want to lay out there, we could check every box and check it more emphatically than any other class. You know, and to be a part of that was incredible. We didn't, you know, I guess we came in with so much like of our own type of swag. Like,
Yeah.
I like to say we kind of ushered in the hip hop era in the NBA.
Yeah, I give credit to Iverson, right?
Because myself, AI, Kobe, we all thought like we were rappers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen some freestyle.
Not Kobe, but with AI, freestyling with AI back in the day, and you know, so we kind of ushered in that new era. Because Michael Jordan, those guys before the games were listening to like Anita Baker, R&B stuff, and then you go into a '90s locker room during our era, it was Biggie, Nas, you know, it was Wu-Tang, it was just hard hip hop that got you pumped and ready for the game.
Yeah, the way and fashion too, right? Fashion as well.
Oh yeah. Well, we ushered in the baggy era, the no suit era.
Well, listen, now coaches don't have to wear suits anymore on the sideline too, but it had to be that way for a while.
Which is crazy when you think about it, because the late great David Stern, he had changed that rule because he had got tired of guys like kind of dressing like whatever on the sidelines. And I know a couple guys early on, they just wrote blank checks and just said, "Fine me."
Yeah,
they gave the team a blank check and said they're just going to dress the way they want to dress every game. They weren't adhering to any dress code.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking as you were saying, this is unanimously the best draft class. I think the argument can end with Kobe Bryant and Steve Nash were in the middle of the first round. You know, like these are just all-time guys in the middle of the first round. That's how deep it was.
Crazy.
Really.
Kobe's the best player in that draft, and he went 13th.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
That's how deep it was.
And another thing that I wanted to bring up, and I think the real hoop heads know this, but from people I haven't talked to, once I said that you were going to come on, so you also know he was in He Got Game, right? Because everybody that I've talked to about basketball has He Got Game as a top 5. You cannot have that, not have that in the top 5 of your basketball movies. Even higher for me. I mean, I'm thinking Coach Carter and other things, but it's hard not to have it 1, 2, or 3. And you had the cameo of being Jesus Shuttleworth, his teammate at Lincoln.
That was pretty dope. And I remember Spike Lee telling us to give us everything we had on every scene, because if we do it right, then he was going to do his part right. This movie will pay you pretty much the rest of your life. And true to his word, I get a check like every month from that movie. So thank you, Spike Lee.
And you still see Spike at the Garden too, so it's awesome.
Spike's a great guy. Spike's a great guy.
I see him interacting with everybody. But yeah, just did you know while you were making it that it would have that kind of cultural impact? Did you start to feel it that it was like that?
All I know is our pickup games were real.
Oh well, yeah,
like that's why those scenes are so good, because those are real games. Like we were hooping, we were going at it, and it was fun. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was nothing scripted. That was real hooping when we were in the park and all that. That was just us hooping in the park. It was dope. Outside on the concrete, on Coney Island, it was dope. Really, really fun.
Yeah. No, it's iconic stuff. And it like to be, you know, you're living in the 90s now. You talk about all that culture, right? You go from being in that draft, that movie, you know, playing in the NBA, you're living out your dream, right? You're, you know, being in New York, was that once you found out that the Knicks took you, right? Or whoever called you, I'm sure you remember the moment, right? It's one of the biggest moments of your life, but is that the dream come true? Because you're playing at Syracuse. Did you think in your mind, I prefer the Knicks, or did that come up, or did you think about that?
I thought I should have went higher initially.
Okay.
So I was a little upset, but still in all, you're happy that you got drafted. And in hindsight, I'm so happy it was the Knicks because of what I've been doing for the last 15 years on the corporate side with them. Also, the way they treat me going into a first class organization. So just knowing how everything's supposed to be run from top to bottom in your first as a rookie, you see how it's supposed to be done. So, and being drafted on a team full of a veteran-laden team, full with consummate pros, I learned the right way and I learned how to, do all the things on and off the court. So I'm forever thankful for those guys and the Knicks organization for giving me a chance and drafting me.
Absolutely. Well said, man. And right away, you're thrown into the fire. I want to talk about the 1997 playoff series. I got to ask you about it because everybody talks about P.J. Brown and Charlie Ward, but if you watch closely, you're the guy that takes P.J. Brown to the floor, defending your teammate as you should, right? So Knick fans need to know that not only would the Knicks have won that series, but you were the guy that made sure that P.J. Brown was down on the ground after that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We were up 3-1 at that time. We were the first team to lose after being up 3-1. It sucked. That those suspensions for guys taking a half a step onto the court and then stepping back and getting suspended. The staggered suspensions, instead of just suspending all the guys one game, there was some guys this game, then other guys another game. It just the way they staggered it just wasn't, it just wasn't right. And obviously, as soon as Charlie Ward went after PJ, I'm going after PJ. Yeah. We just both took him down.
Yeah, the NBA like it ought to be, right? Like a little different these days. But yeah, man, I'm sure when you see stuff today, and I've heard, and I don't know if I would use the word soft, but what I defend a lot in today's player is the game is officiated differently, right? There's certain things you're allowed to and not allowed to get away with, but a lot of people will say, I missed the way it was played in the 90s, right? I don't think that's necessarily a knock on the player, more so the image and the way I think that the NBA wants to go forward with the game.
Well, what happened, the NBA knows that offense sells. And you got to remember, some of those Miami Heat, New York Knicks games back in the day, the final score was like 72-74. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There was no way one of us is scoring 100 points.
No, yeah.
Sorry about that. Hold on.
No, you're good.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry about that. So there was no way one of us is scoring 100 points. It was just a much different game. And the NBA wanted a more free-flowing. The NBA wanted a more free-flowing game, so they implemented certain rules that would benefit the offense, just like in the NFL, like all those rules that go against the defense, but just trying to enhance the offensive game and the fan interaction and all that. Like the fans want to see offense, the fans want to see scoring. That's what they pay for. So the fan experience usurped everything else. And I mean, if Michael Jordan played in today's game where you can't touch a guy, and I mean, he would average 50.
Yeah.
I mean, he averaged 40 basically, and you were hand checking, slam guys, and punch him in the face.
Yeah. Well, they had to change the rules based on that too, because in order to stop the guy, you had to slam him on the ground.
That was crazy, man. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Jordan was tough, man.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking about him because I wanted to bring it up, like the ways that you could implement to try to stop him. And I'm sure coaches were staying up late at night and players were thinking about it. I just remember you saying, listen, man, like that's the black cat. That's the GOAT. That's the toughest player I've ever competed against. And I know a lot of people that played against him, a lot of people that didn't play against him feel the same way.
Well, I know you said you had Chris Childs on here, right?
Yes.
I remember the first time we were playing in Chicago, my rookie year, and I went to Chris Childs like, yo, let's go grab something. He's like, nah, I'm in the room. I'm like, yo, what's up? He's like, man, I got the black cat tomorrow. So when you got to guard Michael Jordan, like the day before, you're going to bed about like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You just want maximum rest.
That's the best chance you got.
You're ordering room service. You're not leaving your room. You're not on your legs at all.
Yeah. Well, we obviously talked to him about that scuffle too. And, the one thing I appreciate about those teams, and again, I told you, I probably started following that team like 98, 99, but just watching back and seeing some of the clips, no one backed down though.
Ever.
No one backed down. The competitiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. We were tough, man. And and it was not just the players, but our coaches.
Yeah.
Thibs, and as you saw, Van Gundy get in the middle of fights. Like he was he was a small guy, 5'6" or whatever, even feet, 5'7", but he wasn't scared.
No.
Van Gundy was a tough, you know what I mean? He was tough. Tough.
Yeah.
That was his brother Stan. Like those guys were tough, man. You look at them and they're like kind of small in stature. Those guys would fight you. They would fight anybody. That as a player you respected that because your coach would really go to war for you. He would really, he showed it. It's one thing to talk about it, but Van Gundy literally got in the middle of a couple of the Knicks players' fights.
Yeah,
and he was infamously hanging under Alonzo Mourning's leg, giving Larry Johnson any advantage he could.
That's got to fire you up as a player, though, too. When you see your coach fighting like that, you're like, yo, I'm going to run through a brick wall. I know that would be, I never played at that level, but if I saw a college coach do that, I'd be like, yo, this guy's going to fight like that. We got to fight even harder now.
Well, absolutely. And that's exactly what he did, man. You didn't mind going to listen to everything he had to say to you because, it was for the betterment of the team. It was well thought out. And he never everything he told you was well thought out. Like he went through probably every possible scenario in the game and who could help us the most in those scenarios. And if you fit in that mold, you were good. If you didn't, that game or that series or whatever, you weren't going to be as utilized.
And the throwback guys, right? Like you mentioned them before, OG, Hart, guys that, now they're bringing in Bridges, another kind of throwback, guards the perimeter. That's got to make you feel good as a Knick fan because now you're starting to see the things that allowed them to be a winning franchise in the past.
Like I said, right at the beginning of this zone, I'm excited for next year. I cannot wait for next season. I'm sure the guys are even more excited, obviously, because they get a chance to at a real run at a title. I mean, we match up very well with all the top teams in the East. It's going to be fun this year. I mean, Boston obviously won it this year. Milwaukee's only trying to come back and be stronger. You see what Philly did this year, trying to make their moves. What's shocking is, as of yet, Miami hasn't really made any moves yet. And Jimmy Butler's a free agent, so I don't know if he's going to stay, walk. Not sure what's going on with that. He had obviously a great run down there, making it to the finals twice, especially last year.
Yeah.
Basically dragged. Like, I don't know how that Miami team made it to the finals, but they did.
For us too, man, that was painful to lose. It's always painful to lose, but painful to lose to them, as you know. I mean, you beat them the Knicks beat them 3 straight times, right? In 98, 99, and 2000. But, those...
We love going. We always remind them of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might have got us in 97, but the other 3 times, we owned you. We sent you home. There's no better feeling.
Yeah, and you know what? The rivalries, like, this is what I love about playoff basketball as a fan. You start seeing it with the Pacers and Knicks going back and forth with each other. I didn't mind Josh Hart going up to Reggie and having some fun there. The Knicks did not lose the series because of that. Let's not be silly. All right. That stuff, that bringing back those rivalries, the Cavs, the Heat, all the teams that you're now going to see, and then obviously you got to get through the defending champions, but bringing these rivalries back, going to the second round 2 years in a row, now I'm just, like you said, amped for this year because you anticipate, as long as everyone's healthy, that we're going, full steam ahead now again.
Yeah, we're going to be really good. Hopefully Julius Randle has a full recovery from his surgery. I'm sure he's rehabbing like a crazy madman right now to get back to 100%. It was shocking he had that injury because he's just been so like a rock throughout his career. He basically plays like 80, 82 games like every season. Like he hardly ever misses a game. So at the most inopportune time, when we were making a run and looking good, he got injured, and then OG went down for a little bit. Like, so the injury bug kind of definitely affected us this year. and everyone's going to be, taking care of their bodies this summer and preparing for another run at it this upcoming season. Man, cannot wait. Cannot
Of
wait.
course. I was talking loudly in January, maybe a little too loudly. I was wearing Knicks gear every day. I was throwing my chest out. Hey, I don't think anybody can beat us the way we're going right now. I mean, you remember blowing out Denver, blowing out Philly. I mean, we weren't just beating teams. We were beating up teams and the good teams too.
Yeah, and like I said, the Knicks were rolling at that point in January when Julius got hurt. I mean, we were playing at such a peak level. I'm firing on all pistons in terms. Everyone was getting their share. Like it wasn't too dominant. One game Jalen would be the high score. Next game would be Julius. Another game it'd be OG. Like it was just really balanced scoring and just an incredible run in January. Then it all kind of came apart a little bit with the injuries.
Yeah, not our time, but like you said, a lot to look forward to in a busy offseason. But now some new guys coming in. I wanted to ask you some guys that were, drafted. Obviously, they had 4 draft picks, but just a new player, whether it's a first-year guy in the NBA or if it's just someone coming over free agency, what type of advice would you give a first-time New Yorker or just playing for the Knicks and dealing with the media? And what would a conversation like that, things that you could say on a Zoom call right now?
I remember the first thing the guys told me was, "Don't read the papers.
Okay.
Don't only be concerned with what the coaches and your teammates are telling you. Don't get caught up in reading the papers and the media and all that." So I never read the papers, and I just concentrated on my teammates and my coaches, and it worked out. So that's what I would tell them. Like, just stay away from the paper. Well, for today's era, stay off social media.
Yeah, it's hard.
Focus on yourself. No, it's not hard. Just don't go on it.
True. Well, maybe I'm speaking for myself. Maybe I need a social media break too.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been on it, so I have no idea about it. But like,
Okay, you're better off.
I'm not a social media person, but I would tell stay off social media, don't read the papers, and focus on your game and your craft. Trying to like your first contract is good, but your second contract is great, and everyone's playing for that second contract, even your first year. You're banking equity to get that second contract, so that's part of it too.
No, definitely. And you talk about social media and you talk about, the media in general. What do you make of, I know guys have had podcasts, as former players, right? And you finish your career. Did you ever think we'd come to a point where a guy would play a game and then he would create the media on his own? Did you think that would ever happen in the NBA?
No, because I mean, this whole social media world is beyond my realm, so to speak. It just never been my thing. So the fact that you can go and play a game and then right after have your host your podcast and talk about, I think it's dope. And it's players learning how to expand and build and keep their brand relevant. Okay, that's the way to do it. So there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? All publicity is good, no matter no matter how it happens. If people are talking about you, whether it's good or bad, they're talking about you.
Yeah, as long as I always thought that as long as it's not a distraction, like you see Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart doing their roommate show throughout the course of the year. These are conversations they're probably having with themselves, at their houses, hanging out, and now they're just giving the fans the access that we didn't have before. So we know those guys are putting in the work and they're not lazy. And, these are hardworking players. I love it as a fan. You just worry about it becoming maybe too much for a player, but I love to see them do it.
Yeah. You love it. The organization and the coaches don't love it as much.
Yeah. Well, even Thibs got on one of those episodes, though, believe it or not. I did not think they would get Thibs on. I'm happy that they did, though.
After the season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you can't get them on during the season.
No, you wouldn't.
Thibs is working on a game plan for, whatever game might be coming up. So Thibs not taking out any time during the season to do any type of podcast.
No question. And speaking of all that, I wanted to tell you, I really enjoy your relationship with Bill Pito and the commutes that I've watched, right? That was really cool. You had mentioned earlier about, being on the radio and doing color. What has been the most rewarding part of that journey for you as being somebody that is now talking about the game and broadcasting the game?
Just being able to give your own perspective on the game and the situations and how you feel about it, and definitely trying to share your knowledge and the knowledge you've gained from the game, from your coaches, and trying to share with the audience and the fans, man. And that's really what it's about, trying to convey everything you learn and put it into words so the fans can experience not only what you learn, but what you're trying to teach them at the same time.
Awesome, man. I know you, and I also know, and I wanted to finish with this because to me, it's the most important thing. I think you would agree with it, what you do in the community and how you help young people. And I knew that about you when I met you in 2011 with Skip. And I was just wondering, how are ways now? I know you have daughters, and what are ways that you've been able to stay involved and to help the young people with basketball and life in general?
Well, with Heavenly Productions Foundation, I'm on the board of that. We've given out backpacks all over the world to kids in need with school supplies and all kind of supplies within that backpack, and just trying to stay relevant within the Knicks organization in terms of all the stuff we do in the community. I mean, the Knicks and the Garden of Dreams, they do so much in the community year round. It's not just during the basketball season. Year round, there's stuff going on. There's events, and the Knicks fans, I'm telling you, man, there's just nothing like the Knicks fans. I get love from the Knicks fans like I got drafted yesterday. You know, it's so dope. So truly appreciate that. Appreciate everything the Knicks organization and Mr. Dolan has done for me. And our guy Skip Gary has done so much for me also. And in terms of what he does up in Dogville with the kids and the community, and giving back to that community that's given so much to him. You know, so I tell him all the time, I learned so much from him.
Yeah, I say
He's
that
like
too.
one of the best examples of a man that you can think of on this planet. You know, so.
And everything that you said was awesome, right? I love, and I knew that about you, not even just from reading and hearing from Skip, but I have to talk about him for a second too, because I text him, whether it's Veterans Day, Memorial Day, just to say what's up on Father's Day. He had a big imprint, or left a big imprint on me, an impression of how he handles himself as a person.
No doubt.
I learned a lot from him just in those, few years from FST, and just, his daughters and me had the same basketball trainer growing up in Brian Huber. And just, I'm very thankful for that time, because as I now go on in life, I always some of those lessons and some of those things that he spoke about come up, and I'm grateful for it, for sure.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
And listen, I really appreciate your time today, man. It's an exciting time for the Knicks, and just when a former NBA player and someone that's accomplished things with the organization joins us, it's always a thrill for me, and I know it'll be a thrill for my family and friends that will tune into this, and slowly growing the following. So loving this, and cannot wait. And I'm even tuned into Summer League, so I'm a fanatic. I'm crazy about it. But
I got the Summer League on now.
Yeah, well, the Knicks are coming. The Knicks are coming up soon. But John, seriously, appreciate your time, and hopefully, and I'll be at a few games. I'm going to try to make the home opener and then playoff games. But maybe we could link at some point. I'd love to see you at the Garden, man.
All right, Eric. Appreciate you having me, man. Peace.
Sounds good, man.